When she showed up at my job, her face pale and trembling, I almost didn't recognize her. 2 weeks. That's all it took for silence to do what words never could. She stood at the edge of my office doorway, pretending to smile, pretending she hadn't been the one who set the fire and walked away from the ashes. I looked up from my desk, calm, focused. "You shouldn't be here," I said. She hesitated. "We need to talk." I almost laughed. Now she wanted to talk. 2 weeks earlier, she'd said it with that new tone in her voice, the one that made every word sound like a command. "From now on, I decide when we spend time together. Stop bothering me." She said it casually, like she was setting a boundary. But I knew the tone. It wasn't distance. It was detachment. The kind people use when they've already found someone else to fill your place. I didn't argue, I just nodded. Okay. That was the last word I spoke to her. Back then, we were inseparable. She'd lean against me on cold mornings, whispering how safe she felt in my arms. I believed her. She was the kind of woman who made you forget your instincts. You'd see the lies forming in her eyes, but you'd convince yourself they were shadows, not warnings. When we bought the house together, I thought it was the beginning of something permanent. Turns out it was just leverage. It started with small things. Her phone always face down. Her perfume changed. She began dressing up for work dinners she never used to attend. Then came the distant smiles, polite, hollow, like she was entertaining a stranger in her own home. The night I saw her reflection in the window, her lips pressed against someone else's face in the car parked outside, I didn't move. I watched until the tail lights disappeared down the street. My heart didn't break. It crystallized. That's the difference between heartbreak and clarity. One hurts, the other sharpens. The next morning, I made her breakfast. Quietly, I asked nothing, said nothing. She looked at me like she was waiting for a reaction that never came. That was the beginning of her unease. You see, silence is terrifying to the guilty. It forces them to hear themselves. I started withdrawing, not emotionally, but strategically. She didn't know it yet, but every joint account, every shared password, every subscription, every automatic transfer, all of it was being rerouted. I moved the savings into a separate account under my name. I canceled the insurance policy she'd taken out for both of us. I wanted her to feel the weight of what she'd lost, not in one strike, but in increments, like oxygen slowly leaving a sealed room. When she finally realized something was wrong, she tried to play nice. "You've been quiet lately," she said. "Is everything okay?" I smiled. Perfect. The first week of silence passed. No calls, no texts, no questions, just emptiness. The second week, she broke. Mutual friends said she'd been showing up at her lover's apartment and living in tears. He'd started avoiding her. I didn't need to intervene. She was doing the work for me. I knew she'd come to me eventually. Guilt always circles back to the place it started. So, here she was standing in my office, hands shaking. "You've been ignoring me," she said, voice trembling between guilt and pride. "You can't just cut me off like that." I leaned back in my chair, letting the silence stretch between us until it felt suffocating. "You made the rules," I said. "I'm just following them." Her expression cracked. She wasn't expecting calm. She was expecting chaos, shouting, begging, something she could manipulate. Instead, she got stillness. She stepped closer. "I made a mistake," she whispered. "No," I corrected. "You made a choice." I slid a folder across the desk. Inside. Divorce papers, bank statements, property separation, everything clean, documented, finished. The moment she opened it, the color drained from her face. "You already filed last week." For the first time, she was silent. I stood, walked past her, and stopped at the door. "You decided when we'd spend time together." "I just followed your instructions." 2 weeks of peace and quiet. "You should have enjoyed it while it lasted." She looked at me like a stranger. Maybe that's what I'd become. Or maybe it's what I'd always been, and she just never saw it. That night, I sat alone in the house she'd once called home. Her perfume still lingered faintly on the curtains like an echo. But it didn't hurt anymore. It felt clean. Revenge doesn't always come with fire and noise. Sometimes it's just the sound of nothing. The space you leave behind when you finally stop reaching for someone who already let go. Silence had spoken louder than any scream ever could.